I've decided it's time to dive into learning game development firsthand. The only problem? I know absolutely nothing about it. I'm Bucky Mayer, and today marks the start of a journey where we can learn together as you follow me along in making my first game. I'm not just talking about some Snake clone or tutorial game, or on the other hand, some mega ambitious space simulator that's never going to come out, but a real achievable to build game that's released publicly and that I can be proud of. Now that probably still sounds pretty ridiculous, so let's just hop into how we're going to get started and actually make this happen. My first step is setting some guardrails for myself. The last thing I want is to take on another project that just won't ever see the light of day. So figuring out exactly what's achievable from the beginning seemed fair. What I got to was that the game I build has to be buildable by a novice, have one core game mechanic, be simple to pick up and play, and allow the player to progress. With this simple list set out, I then wanted to understand what type of game I actually wanted to build. What's something that can meet all of these, but that I can still feel really passionate about across the entire process. Ideally, it's something I can keep adding to as well. When I thought about what an achievable game for me to build might be, the first place my mind went was to a very early iPhone game called Doodle Jump. You just endlessly jumped upwards to achieve a high score, with different power-ups as you went. Of course, these games evolved to the likes of Jetpack Joyride, Temple Run, and Subway Surfer, but I figured I could start small and still make a fun game that I enjoyed playing. A part of these games I loved were the roguelike elements. The sense that I could progress even in a bite-sized session where I still lost in the end, making this next session that much more fun, and that session was different from the last. In the past couple years, I've spent tons of hours in Hades, Dead Cells, Loop Hero, and Inscription, and I'm hooked on the idea of building out a game with some roguelike elements. And as someone with no experience, I imagine that roguelikes also allow you to continuously add different power-ups and unlockables after you've nailed down the core experience, long into its lifespan, which I think sounds great for a new game dev that'll constantly be learning. So, where I settled was pairing Endless Runner with roguelike elements in a fantasy setting. Okay, great, we've got our game and setting, what's next? First, I wanted to lay out a rough story to set a theme for the game. So, you're in a new adventurer in a fantasy world, and your goal is to explore it. It's a dangerous and treacherous world filled with beasts, bandits, and magic, and as you progress, you go from a new adventurer to a more experienced master, which I felt the roguelike elements really fit with. The next step would be a core overview of the gameplay, both what's important to me and how it might jive with the theme. The 4 key tenets I want for this game are that it is an endless runner, has skilled movement, has progression both in and out of run, and that it allows for the player to make meaningful choices. Lastly, I'm aiming to make this for Android first, as that's the phone that I have. Okay, so at a very high level, a game is coming together. Now comes the achievable part. I wanted to break this project down into more bite-sized scope and roadmap, understanding what the first version might look like and how that eventually evolves into a complete game to ensure it gets worked on and doesn't feel too daunting. In thinking about what was just laid out, I want to come up with the most simple version that's still a game before my mind runs wild. In our case, and for our genre, to make the start of an endless runner, I felt we'd need the following in a first iteration. When booted, player is running upwards, background is constantly moving down, player can move horizontally, player is met with obstacles they must dodge. As the player runs, it gets harder, and the player eventually dies or loses. And of course, on death, the run will restart. So this will be the first version. It's going to be a bumpy but fun ride as we start building in the next episode, and I can't wait to see where we get to. If you're curious about how I make that first version and what it looks like as we progress, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Also, if you have any ideas for a name or key elements you want to see in the game, let me know in the comments below.